The real question for me is forget about humor being universal. Looking at the current scheme of affairs in the nation, I feel the bigger question is there humor anymore?
Is it the culture that is stopping it from being funny to you? No, right? No. People from the same culture find it funny.
A lot of MCBC oriented jokes might be acceptable in one region of the country.
I don't know if you're just arguing for the sake of arguing because it is making no sense.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the second episode of 3 Dots and Hash. We are really thankful for all our viewers, including our friends and mostly friends rather, for the love that they've showered over the last two days. So thank you everybody. So today's topic, interestingly, we've picked up another topic which is something we feel is not only relevant but a very interesting topic to ponder on. The topic is humor universal? So just to explain a bit, what I mean is what you perceive as humor or funny, is that universal? Does that transcend boundaries? Or is there anything which is humorous or funny for everybody? So more on that. So on my left, I would like to introduce before we start. On my left is Babaji.
Namaskar.
Who will impart us his wisdom.
No, we are all wise.
But you are wiser.
By virtue of age.
Again, let us have to. As I said last time also, I am wiser by virtue of experience, not age. But yeah, by age I am senior to all of you. I accept that.
Thank you. And on my right is my very dear friend Raman. Before we proceed, I would also like to introduce Raman. I guess in the last episode we skipped, or Raman skipped himself.
Give me a second.
What is your definition of Raman?
Definition of Raman. I don't have a definition, Papa. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Okay.
I think Raman to me is a great friend of mine, very dear to me. I hang out with Raman a lot. Now, just to give you a perspective of Raman, I think is a very interesting, very innocent guy. Probably one of the most innocent guys I've come across in my
Innocent?
life. Yeah.
Okay.
So naive that he can have and form deep connections with a 13-year-old boy who ends up stalking him on social media.
That is...
Raman is so efficient, guys. Raman never steps out of the house and he still gets abundance of vitamin D in his life. Right?
Okay.
And of course, a never optimistic Indian who believes that India can win from any situation, even if in Australia is like 2-1 down, about to lose another one. Raman's like, we want to qualify for WTC. So the optimism in him is like something that I really admire a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So here goes Raman.
Thank you so much. मुझे लग रहा है तो बहुत apt introduction था. So thank you so much for all the words said about me. I do not attest or...
We don't need your attesting.
Okay, perfect.
Anyway, so yeah, coming back to the topic. So starting with Baba in order of seniority. So what is humor? Okay, before, just to give you a broad guideline, Baba, so we'll talk about what we understand as humor, theories of humor, or however you want to classify humor. And then overall, we'll discuss the parameters over which we can assess whether humor is universal. So I've already explained what universal means, right?
What are those parameters we're looking at?
So it could be contextual, cultural / social, psychological, and physiological, if at all.
Okay.
Right? These are the broad cues for us to assess whether humor is although subjective, but is it still universal?
Universal on these various aspects.
And if you have any other aspects that you wanna include in the topic, please feel free.
Sure.
So, and then thereafter we want to come to some sort of conclusion in the sense that in the current times, as we perceive humor, is it universal at all? Right?
Okay.
So with that in mind, Baba, please.
Yes. So in the beginning we try to define human, right? Or what we each feel about human. So I think for me humor is something that evokes or brings a smile. Okay. Whether I express it in my face or internally laugh, एक मूवी आया था मन में हंस के दिखाओ, याद है? एक शूल बोल के मूवी था, उसमें बंदूक रख के बोलता है कि मन में हंस के दिखाओ. So maybe that's not a very way to say it. But you might smile or laugh or might not, but internally you're happy. I think that's humor for me. I think again, music and humor, I think these are the only two things in our life which can take us to a different level of joy and happiness. We'll talk about music in some other context, but humor is one feeling that can actually make you calm, peaceful, joyful, happy.
So essentially, it's an important aspect of your life. You can't imagine a human life without humor. Is that a correct way of understanding it?
Yeah, for most people. I'm not saying everybody. There might be a very serious guy who guy or girl, whatever, doesn't want to have any humor in her life.
Okay, so what do you understand when I say humor in general? What do you understand by the word?
Right. So, I was researching about the topic because Piyush ka काफी strong एक advice था कि हम लोगों को guys we have to be more research driven. तो काफी सारी definition of course my research of course is Google. तो काफी सारी definition.
Why don't you quote your second girlfriend here, ChatGPT?
No,
he is very jealous, by the way.
Perfect. So ChatGPT
He is the
Google.
second girlfriend. His first girlfriend is ChatGPT.
No, he is the wife first, so then it's like wife.
He has an extramarital affair with ChatGPT.
I think Raman D और ChatGPT में भी वो मूवी निकल सकता है, मेरे हस्बैंड की बीवी.
ऐसा कोई मूवी नहीं.
अभी आ गया ब्रो, क्या बात कर रहा है तू?
Arjun Kapoor, famous actor in India.
Good for Bollywood.
Okay.
तो जो एक समझ में आया, जो definition मुझे लगा कि मैं relate कर पा रहा हूँ, that was from Cambridge Dictionary, which defines humor as an ability to find something funny. So what it does is changes the reference point or the point of view of the humor from something being innately funny or not to the observer finding something funny or not, right? So I think I think that's what humor is. It is the ability for somebody to find something funny. So yeah.
Okay.
So,
what is your definition, Piyush?
So on similar lines, right? That I think humor also comes from a lot of feeling of letting go of things. Like today, something might be painful for me. Tomorrow, it might become humorous for me. So again, coming back to the definition, I feel humor is an essential emotion in life. I wouldn't imagine a human life without experiencing humor, throughout his life or her life. So it's an emotion, it's a biochemical reaction, which results in a laughter or maybe not at times, but it's basically identifying elements which intrigues me, but at the same time makes me happy and joyous. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Coming to the definition, there's some interesting theories out there on the internet, which says that what can be humorous or what can be classified as humorous. So one such interesting theory is called benign violation theory. It's by a humor research lab.
नाम तो सही
So
लगा.
there's a lab which does research on humor. I mean, how interesting is their job?
लेकिन वो लोग seriously करते हैं research.
Yeah, that's their
They
job.
don't do it in a humorous way. They seriously, just like we are talking seriously about humor,
Yeah.
they do research seriously about humor.
That's the irony.
That-
It's like serious work.
Okay, ये तो खतरनाक ironical.
So the theory says that for anything to be humorous, there are three things, right? It has to be benign, which is kind and gentle. It has to be some sort of violation to your belief system, violation to your culture, violation to your feelings or whatever. And both things have to happen simultaneously. So if it happens that way, it is humorous.
So if there is no violation, there is no humor.
No.
Violation मतलब कुछ challenge हो रहा है. I feel.
हाँ तो challenge हो रहा है could be very again subjective, right? In the sense that challenge हो रहा है could be sarcastic humor. I understand. You cannot have sarcasm which is not challenging something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But a normal humor may not be
Always challenging.
always be challenging, right?
Yeah.
मतलब
Observational humor.
a lot of, let's say, what let's say slapstick humor, or Charlie Chaplin was doing a lot of things on the screen, right?
Yeah.
We see Tom and Jerry, whatever, those kind of, a lot of them might not be challenging anything.
Yeah.
It's just making you laugh.
Yeah.
So-
that can be one way of evoking humor.
So I think, on the definition he was saying that
It's a theory.
in the theory, so I'm saying the theory that it has to have these two components might not be true in all types of
exhaustive
humor.
nahi hai wo.
It may be a subset of the humor theory, if I
So,
can say.
so based on the theory, it also says that there's a thing called malign violation as well. So dark humor could be an aspect which is probably malign, but and it's a violation, but it's funny, right? So there are areas where people joke about which are certainly sensitive, but there are certain sets of people who find it humorous, and I don't find it anything wrong with that, because I think it's just joke. It's just a simple joke at the end of the day. So we'll move on to the culture bit of it in a few minutes, but just so that we are on the topic, the thing is that anything for us to be be cognizant of that, it is offending, we should also understand that the undertone or the purpose is just to evoke humor. That's the end goal.
It brings out some smile or happiness, or challenges you to a great extent. But I think we have agreed that benign or malign is correct. It has to be there, either kind or unkind. But whether the other part was what? The benign,
it has to be challenging.
So I think that's where we disagree to a great extent.
Yeah.
It might or might not be challenging.
जैसे मैं आपको कुछ पढ़ के सुनाता हूँ दोनों को, and you tell me if you find this funny, and if you do, why? If you don't, then why not? अरे चढ़ गया ऊपर रे, अटरिया पे लोटन कबूतर रे.
Now, this is funny to me because I know the song, and Mithunda was there. So,
anything in Mithunda is funny. Is Mithunda funny to you?
Mithunda is very funny to me. Okay, and this is from Dalal, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
So Dalal, so it was a blockbuster movie in that year, by the way.
It
So
was a flop, I think.
No, नहीं blockbuster.
आप ही ने जाके उसमें मतलब
Blockbuster का मतलब क्या हुआ? You put in X amount, you get 3X amount. That is blockbuster. It is not like everything has to be 100 crores. So it was a hit movie.
Just like, also, do you mean it's like Badass Ravi Kumar?
Badass Ravi Kumar is a massively hit movie. They put in some 10 crores, they got 30 crores.
The general notion about Badass Ravi Kumar is like it's a nonsensical
So
movie.
just the commercial angle is what makes a movie great.
No, I was talking about whether it's a hit movie or not.
No. I also want to touch upon the aspect that Badass Ravi Kumar, the humor that's there in Badass Ravi Kumar, I personally enjoyed it. I mean, I had a good time. I don't remember the last time I enjoyed a movie like that. So that is humor also. Right? And I found it humorous.
Of course.
It's so bad that it's good.
That's what Gunda was, right?
Yeah.
So
correct. So that is also humor.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the point that we were discussing, actually bringing this all back to that, I think it boils down to the fact that people with collective beliefs will find the same thing funny. That's why there are probably inside jokes as well. That's why there are groups who hang out together. In fact, I would go on to say that happiness is not just about laughter. In fact, it is lesser about laughter as it is about belonging. So people who have, laughing at the same thing probably are people who feel belonged in that particular setting. So, so that's what I think.
yeah. And I think the medium is also important, right? So
we'll discuss all the aspects, right? So first point that I want to touch upon is, how humor is influenced by so-called geographies / culture, because culture is also an aspect, or geography is an aspect of culture.
Correct.
Right? So how is it that, a same language, British humor is very different than American humor, and although I'm not aware of Australian humor, but I'm sure that from what we've seen so far in the newspapers during Border Gavaskar Trophy, it's very different than what we consume or what general audience in India consume. We consume a lot of American humor. All our shows so far if you've seen the evolution, right? Friends, which was funny to me to a certain extent or to a certain age, is no more funny. I don't like the typical slapstick humor that these shows have to offer. So humor also evolves with time. Even in Hindi cinema or Hindi television history, if you see, when we were growing up, we could even laugh at clowns juggling balls. But now, if you see a clown juggling a ball, you will not laugh. But a clown ruling the country, maybe yes.
तो मैं अपने सेम उस पे जाऊंगा रेफरेंस पॉइंट पे वापस क्योंकि
कल्चर
हाँ मैं सेम रेफरेंस पॉइंट पे जाऊंगा कि अगर सेम तुम्हारे कल्चरल बिलीफ है तो राइट आई मीन दैट डिफाइंस इट मोर और लेस कि अगर आपकी बिलीफ सिमिलर है तो यू कैन लाफ एट दैट इनफैक्ट आई वुड गो ऑन टू से अ पर्सन हु इज मोर एक्सपोज्ड to multiple culture might have ability to laugh at more things than a person who's just stayed and who's just been exposed to one particular culture. And it is not just the culture, I think, anything in the world. If I'm more exposed to more ideas, probably I have an ability to look beyond something. See, first of all, why do we not laugh at a few things? What is the reservation that we have? That is the attachment to a few topics, I feel, a lot. And if you look at maybe Buddhism or Stoicism, where you are detached from everything. A person who is truly detached from everything, I think, can laugh at anything.
That's a very important.
Yeah, I think has probably the lightest heart because you do not hold that something is so close to you.
As a child, that's why they say that laugh as a child.
Laugh as a child probably because they're so detached. They probably are not attached to most of the things.
But that's the most innocent laugh that you will ever see.
Yeah. Let's go to Baba, I think, first.
Yeah, so I think the cultural and geographical context is very important. As for example, and it's not about, we should not look at culture or geography as a country. Even within the country, for example, India, a lot of MCBC oriented jokes might be acceptable in one region of the country, might be very offensive in another region, right? That's what even some of the comedians, when they come on these shows, they say कि मैं ये सब बोल सकता हूँ. But I think is that what we're talking about is that the geographical context of humor is important and the cultural context, and from that perspective, if I have to look at the universality of humor, I don't think it exists. That you cannot say this is universally accepted.
Like a joke, you are saying in every culture would not be would not be one joke that would stand in every culture.
We'll have to think about those exceptions, but there are exceptions to every norm, right? But if we are looking at whether humor is universal across cultures, the answer for me is no.
See, again, I'll go back to the fact that humor is the ability of finding something funny, right? तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि कुछ ऐसी चीजें common नहीं हो सकती क्या across geographies, across cultures, that can evoke like let's say as we were talking earlier about small kids or some babies doing something which is evoking a sense of humor in everybody else, or some pets, some dogs doing some silly things. So that would be relevant everywhere, right?
That would be relevant. For example, again, if you have to talk, let's cartoons, right? I don't think Tom and Jerry is
or Charlie Chaplin.
Okay, so Baba, you think that it's more or less more cultural and geographical in its way, and hence it's not universal. It doesn't transcend across cultures, across.
Yeah, there will be some exceptions, but mostly a lot of humor is dependent on culture. So yeah, I would not give it a very high rating on universality. Context is very important. So context makes something humorous or non-humorous.
Yeah, are you asking?
So Raman, what is your final take?
तो मेरे को भी I agree with Baba to a certain extent, but not entirely. मुझे लगता है कि context is important, but there could still be a lot of things that can be humorous for multiple people and that can be universal. It's just a point of view of looking at something. कुछ भी पत्ता हिल रहा है और नीचे एक आदमी बैठा है, उसके ऊपर एक सेब है जो डैंगल कर रहा है, and this man is also moving इधर उधर और सेब आके सर पे गिरता है finally. To an observer, it can be funny, and it can be funny anywhere else without any context.
Is it universal?
Yeah, it is funny. It is universal. आप क्या बोल रहे हो? मतलब for people everywhere, right? It has to be funny.
For example, a British, an American,
anybody can find it funny. Is what I'm saying. A person slipping on a banana, this thing peel is funny to a certain. It is not defined by geography or culture.
It is not defined by somebody who has fallen on a banana yesterday. Might not find it funny. But from a geography perspective,
it is
No,
not
every culture might find it funny, no? It is
Yeah,
not
that's
necessary.
what I'm saying.
I think
So there is no-
There is no cultural this thing here.
There is no
This
cultural.
is because of a culture that somebody would find
Okay,
it funny.
let's conclude that. I mean, although Raman, I buy your point, but I disagree with it. That I feel that it is very, very driven culturally, or it is restricted to a boundary. We can barely joke about anything right now. I mean, the times we are living in.
Whether you can joke or not is a different thing. Does it evoke humor or not is the point.
yeah.
No,
Let's say you cannot joke about it, but do you still find it humorous?
it is.
Is it something that is the
Lot of
culture
people-
that is stopping you from it? There might be a lot of things because, as I said, it depends on the reference point. It is a point of view. However, there would surely be a lot of things that would transcend the cultural context at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I
what
agree.
I'm
I
trying
agree.
to say.
The culture plays a major role in what defines your humor, but there are some instances.
Enough and more, I would say.
Enough and more, but there are a lot of things which transcend geographical boundaries,
Yeah.
which are universally human.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're trying
Yeah.
to say.
Exactly.
No, but what's an example of that?
Slapstick comedy.
Slapstick comedy.
Observational comedy, जैसा कुछ something is happening. I'm not a
See, again,
comedian,
when
so I
you're
can't.
saying that any form of comedy which is humorous to everybody across geographies, across culture, you have to give an example where, say, a show or say something is widely accepted across cultures, across geographies. So, for example, Friends, right? It is widely accepted, widely acclaimed.
Yeah.
It's not funny to you. It's not funny to me.
Is it the culture that is stopping it from being funny to you or me? No, right?
no.
People from the same culture find
Say
it funny.
somebody doesn't even understand the language, right? So it is
फिर तो छोड़ी language तो
or that kind of humor.
वो तो
right?
subtitle में आ
that kind
जाएगा.
of humor that is not because of culture is what I'm saying. Friends, tell me some place because of culture they do not enjoy watching Friends. Tell me one culture if we are debating that.
I'm not debating. I'm just trying to say that there will not be anything which will transcend across culture.
Friends is
To start with, tell me one culture, no, because of something, a culture stops somebody of any belief.
Is it running in China? Is it running in North Korea?
I do not know.
It
That
is
might
not.
that
It is not.
that might not be because they are not finding it funny.
It is
That might be because of the restrictions.
restrictions.
So
yeah.
whatever it is still a part of the culture, right?
And
It is,
yes,
and geographically also it is binding.
See, मैं कह रहा हूँ, I don't know if you're just arguing for the sake of arguing
I'm
because
not
it is
arguing.
making no sense.
I'm trying to.
If it is not shown there, if they do not have access to that, doesn't mean there is no humor for them in that. They would find it funny eventually. You cannot say because this person is from China, they would not find Friends funny. Can you say that?
No, I'm not saying
So
that.
tell me one culture that would not find Friends funny as collective culture.
So as collective culture, I'm saying a lot of societies will not be eligible to watch it. They'll not even understand
That's
that
a
kind of
restriction.
humor.
आप फिर आपने अगर translate कर दिया उसे हिंदी में, would people not watch it? Is my question.
Say for example,
Would somebody not like it because of the
I don't
culture?
think so. The entire communication is lost.
See, सबसे पहले जब मैंने again coming to the societal conditioning for this, and I think this is an important topic. First time मैंने एक जब I think school में था मैं जब first time मैंने Friends देखा था. First of all, I had not watched anything in American English before that, or anything English before that. I think except for a couple of shows on Indian television जो आता होगा शायद cartoons में भी. ठीक है तो उस time पे I did not find it funny, of course, because it was the language, right? But as I started understanding and watching more, I can go back to the same episode. I could go back to the same episode and laugh at it. So language was limiting me. Yes, it was limiting me. But was it the culture that was limiting me? If you consider language as a part of the culture, yes. I would say it is just that I did not have access to it in a language
So
that I
see,
understand.
what we're talking about, that is a barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
To bring in a business
Yeah.
term, right?
Yeah.
If it's a barrier to entry, you don't have access to it
Yeah.
due to governmental controls or language barrier, then you don't even understand it, right? That क्या बोल क्या रहे तीन लोग? Or let's say we're talking in English and Hindi, right? If somebody doesn't know these two languages, this podcast will be meaningless to that person. But that doesn't mean that if he understands, it won't be humorous to him or her.
मेरे को लगता है Friends is not even the right example.
I was just quoting an
मतलब कि
example.
शो का हम बात ही नहीं कर रहे हैं हम कह रहे हैं कि कुछ चीजें हैं ब्रो जैसे कि चार्ली चैपलिन was funny to everybody. If he was not funny to somebody, it was not because of cultural beliefs. So culture was not limiting them from finding it funny.
चार्ली चैपलिन ओके तो है ही
Mr. Beans.
जैसे सर्कस राइट
Yeah.
जोकर्स इन सर्कस
Yeah.
आई कैन नॉट थिंक ऑफ एनी कंट्री बी इट ए सोशलिस्ट कम्युनिस्ट वट एवर कंट्री जहां पे सर्कस हो रहा है जोकर कमिंग विद रेड नोज इज नॉट फनी इट इज फनी यूनिवर्सली सो आई थिंक व्हाट वी कैन कंक्लूड इज देयर आर culture plays a major role in defining what is funny and what is not funny. Having said that, there are instances, elements, or things that are actually universally funny. So I think it's a mix of both, is what I feel.
Yeah.
I think, okay, fairly put. So we'll agree that while it's culturally driven, but it's not limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are instances.
It's not limiting.
There will
Right?
be some things that is humorous across
Fair.
culture.
Across culture.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, which also brings me to the next point, which is on, context. Like while Raman talked about, the observer and how he perceives humor, it is also important that we touch upon what context, right?
How
Like
do you
a-
define context? Is it a time context or what context?
So for example, a death joke at a funeral
Okay.
could not be a good thing to do, although it's a joke, but not at a funeral. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Unless somebody attending the funeral is happy that the person died. Could be. So,
नहीं, मतलब,
no, again, I'm
That's
just saying.
humor.
So I'm saying, see, again, absolutely. I think you're spot on. Context is the most important thing. But when you're saying, you're giving an universal label, that a death joke at a funeral cannot be funny for most people. For some context, it could be funny also, is what I'm saying. So again, it proves the point itself. The
Yeah.
context is important, but the context could be different for different people.
Yeah,
also.
context is very subjective.
And as a reference point, right? Context or reference point, we can
Yeah.
put it as a
Yeah.
same thing.
what about you, Raman?
Yeah, I think context is important. Again, it is driven by the person, right? Let's say it's you are attending a funeral. How close are you to the person who has died? You
So that was just an example.
Yeah, but what I mean is, yeah, you're right. But it is driven. The context is also, you cannot universally define a context. I think context is very subjective.
personal. I think context
And
is
yeah,
very
of
personal.
course, it has to be context driven. 100% of the times, I would say, but the context is very personal.
Yeah, context. You cannot have. You might have universal context, but for example, Kumbh Mela, right? I'm just saying. I hope I don't offend people with this, but the thing is that Kumbh Mela,
Okay.
for us might be means not humorous at all. It's nothing humorous, right? It's a religious festival happening, and a lot of us have gone, including Piyush has gone there, right? But to a certain other country who doesn't like commotion as a cultural context also, right? Why are 50 crore people lining up there to do this? So that could be, they could find humor in that. People are pushing, shoving.
Not just them. I think you are right. But if you are in the bheed, maybe you would not find it funny. But again, somebody in the bheed itself, who is a believer and who is there, can also find humor in it.
Might.
मतलब जैसे लोग खड़े हुए हैं, I remember about certain.
Two guys talking about Mahakumbh who were not there, and
I'm not talking. Yeah, so
I was there, and it was not humorous, guys. Let me be very
to
honest.
you, that's what I'm saying. It was not
To anyone,
No,
trust me. I saw the faces.
That's a blanket statement. To say that it was not humorous to anybody is a blanket
No,
statement.
it's a generalization, is what I'm trying to say. That I've experienced it, and I've seen a lot of faces. Everybody was, like walking in the scorching heat. So it was anything but humorous.
Bro, for you. So for you or people who you saw, there would be people who would be laughing about it and having a good time, and they are there to in bliss and having a good time there, right? So you cannot generalize it, I feel. हो सकता है वही context is important. तेरा context ये है कि तू थका हुआ है, धूप है, तुझे चलना पड़ रहा है, and you have to stand in that and go through that. Maybe for that time it was not humorous for you.
No, but I think on this topic,
कुंभ मेला में कोई humor नहीं ढूंढ पाएगा जो गया है is a very wide statement.
See, I have seen somebody. You can send your photo on WhatsApp to this guy. This guy will take a printout, immerse it, and take 1,000 rupees for you if you are not able to go to Kumbh.
Digital snan.
Digital snan. So see, that is a humorous aspect of Kumbh itself, right?
Yeah.
For us as well as for people, netizens who are looking at it.
Yeah.
So there is humor, but I think we are all in agreement. Context is the most important part. Even transcending culture, context is what defines whether it's humorous or not.
Context at the end of the day is the reference point.
Yeah.
So it is the humor is defined by the observer.
context, yeah.
Is the entity.
मेरे को लग रहा है हम लोग कुछ ज्यादा सीरियसली डिस्कस कर रहे हैं इस टॉपिक को
context
है ना
हो गया
ह्यूमर
ना।
इज समथिंग दैट इज पार्ट ऑफ आवर लाइव्स सो वी शुड आल्सो मे बी शेयर आवर एक्सपीरियंसेस ऑफ समथिंग दैट वी यूज्ड टू फाइंड humorous back then when we were, let's say, in school, and over time something that we have stopped finding funny.
So I will give a very different take, okay? So on the same lines, see, I used to watch a lot of comedy movies and series at one point of time, okay? like Govinda movies I used to watch a lot of Mithun movies, as I said, I found it funny, okay, a lot of rom-com shows I used to watch, English, Hindi, jo bhi hai, right? Dekh Bhai Dekh and all of those stuff. Now over the years, I don't watch any of these comedy things, okay. I don't like to watch comedy, to be very honest. I don't like to watch comedy, okay, but I like to do comedy in my own life, okay. So
मतलब आप इंटेंशनली करते हो कि वो हो जाता है?
ना, वो तो मतलब हो ही जाता है, इंटेंशनली भी करते हैं कभी कभी. So what I'm
कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि आपकी लाइफ ही कॉमेडी है.
लाइफ तो सबका ही कॉमेडी है in some way.
But comedy and humor are not the same thing.
No, it's a subset of humor, right? So
Comedy is a subset of humor.
हाँ, comedy is a subset of humor. So वो है, जैसे you might find me humorous or comical, whatever, right? I don't find you either. That's a different thing. Okay. So that could be there. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, I used to find all those movies. I used to go and watch all those movies and series. Now I don't go and watch those. So my context has changed. I still find them funny if I watch them, but I don't go and seek that kind of comedy. So I think that has changed for me over the years.
तो मूवीज आप नहीं देख रहे हो?
मैं कॉमेडी मूवीज.
तो अभी आप ये इमेज वाली जो देखने गए थे वो सीरियसनेस के साथ गए थे?
हाँ, वो मस्ती करने गया था.
नहीं, वो बहुत सीरियस मूवी था.
तो वो तो मस्ती करने गया था.
इतना कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी स्टेटमेंट क्यों देते हो आप यार?
कौन सा?
बाबा पलट जाते हैं. बाबा इज द एक्चुअल आयरनी. बाबा जी की जगह बाबा आई कर लो.
हिंदी में एक मुहावरा पता, बिन पैंदे का लोटा, लोटे की तरह आप तो हो.
That's another thing. कुछ लोग बोलते हैं there again. ओशो क्या बोलता था ना, I am full of contradictions. Okay.
आप ओशो को फॉलो करते हो?
ओशो आपको बोलता था ये full of contradictions.
Osho himself used to say.
नहीं,
he is full of contradictions.
आप ओशो के प्रिंसिपल फॉलो करते हो?
Absolutely, I love it.
Have you been to KP?
I have been to Osho ashram also for 2 days. What I'm saying is that there are
humor
that will
बाबा थोड़ा टर्न के
that will come.
तो नहीं बोलूंगा.
But I think there are many people in this world, including I think you are one of them, who feel that you are very principled and what you say is the absolute truth, or that's how you behave all your life. What I think is that we are full of contradictions, what I feel. Some people accept it like me. Some people don't. Who want to portray a different
image. Some people
image.
show it like you.
Some people don't want to hide that. Some people are very conscious about how the image they portray in the world, which is okay with them. But I think we ourselves are full of contradictions is what I feel.
And you can laugh at it. You find it humorous.
See, I said I don't watch these movies now. And suddenly he pointed out that you pointed out I watched Bad as Ravi Kumar. That itself is a contradiction, right? So we are full of contradictions. And I embrace that.
You embrace that?
Yeah.
तेरे लिए कुछ है क्या ऐसा? कोई शो या कोई ऐसा या फिर कुछ भी जिस पे तू पहले हंसता था? You told कि juggling. Probably you were laughing at juggling for some reason.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to laugh at clowns juggling balls. Now I laugh at clowns juggling with the country.
Or do you laugh at people scratching their balls though?
I don't.
Observer है ना इस पे. Subject itself cannot laugh.
फिर तुमको एडिट करना पड़ेगा. चलो. अच्छा, next पे जाते हैं.
So yeah, so anyway, to summarize, like a really short topic. So I feel humor is contextual. You guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Right? I feel 100% driven by context.
100%.
Right. Now, third is we would also want to understand so-called barriers that you talked about, right? Say language is a barrier. Now, in any form of communication, say verbal or written or video, audio, right? A joke that is written might not be as humorous as it is, or it can be when it's heard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, in written or any form of communication, do you think humor is universal, considering all other aspects? So what I'm trying to further gather from you guys is that in whatever form of communication that you communicate, right, is say a video that you find funny or a joke that you read you find funny, do you think that it is again a universal thing?
No. So let me try to understand the question. Are you saying that a piece of humor or comedy is
any form of communication?
Is it medium agnostic? Is what you are trying to ask, or what are you trying to ask?
Or is there any medium that is universal?
Yeah.
No. So what you are saying is that a written joke, written is the medium, right?
let's discuss any medium. आपको ऐसा लगता है कोई medium है जो ज़्यादा universal है than the other mediums?
कोई universal ज़्यादा है? I think certainly the visual medium is going to, in my mind, I'm just thinking right now.
comedy की बात नहीं कर रहे, right? Humor की बात कर रहे हैं.
तो I think humor, see, out of our senses, right?
Yeah.
Touch, smell, see, hear. I think our vision or what we see is the most prominent of these. Okay, when we are consuming medium, consuming data, consuming, for example, any presentation you make, if it's visually more appealing, people recall more and all that stuff, right? So I think a visual communication or comedy communicated through the visual medium is certainly going to be more universal than the other mediums, is what I can feel. If it's a comparative scale.
मतलब humans के लिए तो I also feel कि जितनी ज़्यादा आपकी senses engage हो रही है, उतना relevant होगा शायद आपके लिए. If there is, probably a sense of smell also, and then you have the environment, so that's why maybe the live comedy shows also are, for me at least personally, better than watching something recorded on the screen. Whether you are like, हम लोग cricket match की बात करते हैं, right? कि वहाँ से तो दिखता नहीं है. What is the point? Let's sit at home and watch, like let's say a World Cup final. It is not just about watching that match, right? How many senses are getting involved in that experience? I think that is what elevates the whole experience. I think same is true with humor as well. जितनी ज़्यादा senses आपकी engaged रहेंगी, उतना relevant आपके लिए या उतना शायद there is more chances of that humor there is to work for you maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So visual में आपका visual भी है, सुन भी रहे हो तो शायद it is more than just reading.
I didn't just wanted to touch upon the visual aspect. Like for example, audio aspect maybe radio. If you hear, like there are thousands of people in the country who have no access to visual media. YouTube is not free. They are plugged into the radio, and like throughout the time there's song, there's like jokes, and there are characters which have gone like crazy, like Mirchi Murga or Bawa. So it's just a it testifies that it's not just visual, so to say, which we were saying it can be any form. It can be just as two lines.
मेरे लिए ये है कि जितनी ज़्यादा, as I said, senses engaged है आपके पास, उतना chances है for it to be more universal. Audio, I'll tell you right now, maybe because of access. Again, we are going to the same thing. They do not have. Would they find something funnier? Chances of somebody finding something funnier on a screen rather than listening. I'm saying there can be exceptions, of course, but I feel the more number of senses are involved, the more you are into the act. Or more you are...
No, but we're not talking about engagement. We're talking about whether it can be humor without the video.
It can be humor, but we're talking about which is more universal, right? So to that question, the answer is, जितनी ज़्यादा senses involved है, अगर मैं live ही देख रहा हूँ, तो वो सबसे अच्छा medium है.
And it also I think it depends on the kind of content, right? For example, funny तुम बोल रहे हो, let's say Varun Grover. Varun Grover is very sarcastically funny in various things, right? You don't need to look at Varun Grover to find his content funny. But a Johnny Lever, you might need to look at him to find him funny.
Physical comedy.
So the thing is that the person doing the comedy.
But Johnny Lever was very popular. His cassettes used to be there, so let's not forget that he was funny.
But I think what has happened, those were like movies लोगों ने देख लिया है, and then they know the dialogues, and then they listen to it. So they have a visual interpretation of Johnny Lever, and then they're listening to it. If they have never looked at Johnny Lever or never looked at him in the movie scene, just they get the cassette, it might not be that funny, is what I'm saying. Again,
it could be, could not be.
Could not be.
Context is important.
Context is important.
But मेरे लिए मुझे ऐसा लगता है जैसे हम लोग, let's just look at our behaviors, right? हम लोग, how we have graduated from being in person to talking over the phone to having video calls till now, and maybe going forward there might be something where you can also have a sense of smell of around the place जिससे तुम बात कर रहे हो. Yeah, मतलब the idea is to make it more engaging for you, right? Any form. So to make it as close to real as possible, to make you feel तुम अगर उस मोमेंट में हो तो तुम्हें ये चीज ज्यादा फनी लग रहा है rather than तू मुझे आके स्टोरी बताएगा.
So I think the visual medium is the most prominent, I would say, but at the same time we are not saying that something which is just written or something which is just audio cannot be funny.
100%.
It can be funny, and it is funny.
It can be funny universally as well, but chances of some visual this thing to be funnier is higher.
Higher is what I feel. Yeah, right.
So we've agreed that it is visual form of communication that's the most convenient to convey humor, but there are also certain forms which are not probably or essentially aided by visual media, but are still humorous.
Yeah.
मेरे ख्याल से मीडियम टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट हमने ऑल्दो वी हैव डिस्कस दिस एंड आई स्टैंड बाय इट बट कई चीजें हैं जो क्योंकि हम ह्यूमर की बात कर रहे हैं ना ह्यूमर इज नॉट लाइक कॉमेडी ह्यूमर इज नॉट प्लान्ड इट जस्ट पॉप्स अप राइट एट प्लेसेस सो इट कैन हैपन इन एनी मीडियम ऐसा मेरे ख्याल से बहुत ज्यादा मीडियम से गवर्न भी नहीं होगा बट अगर हम कॉमेडी की बात करें आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर द विजुअल दिस थिंग वुड
इसमें एक बात आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू थिंक सो व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू टॉक अबाउट ह्यूमर a fond recollection that brings a smile to our face is also humor in some way, right? Or we don't classify that as humor. For example, I'm just saying, let's say there is a smell associated that
humor has funny element.
Humor has to have a funny element.
हाँ.
Okay, that's a fond recollection which is not humor.
Yeah. ऐसा हो सकता है कि हम जीरो की बात कर रहे हैं, सोच रहे हो और आप हंस रहे हो, तो that is humor.
Funny it becomes maybe later, right? At that point in time, it could be say gore, it could be horror. It could be terrorizing.
But then that is not humor, no?
Later it can be humor.
Whenever it is humor, whenever you call it humor, it would be funny at that point. Otherwise you can't call it humor.
When you're finding it funny.
That time it becomes humor.
That's what I'm saying. So, say for example, you had an accident.
Yeah, which is not humor.
Yeah. But say because of some goof-ups that you did.
For me it is not humor.
That led to the accident.
Yeah.
Right?
Till the time I am not finding it funny, it is not humor for me. If you are finding it funny from the word go, it is humor for you.
Yeah.
But funny is a core this thing of humor. And for anything to be called humor, I think it needs to have a element of funny attached to it. Yeah. But it cannot be bringing a smile to your face just because you like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you're fond of
absolutely.
something. Funny is a core value for humor.
Your mistakes also, when you look back, you laugh at them because apparently now you find it funny.
हाँ मतलब अगर तुम ये बोल रहे हो क्या चूत मैंने क्या किया है and then you're laughing at it, that is funny. But recollection thinking मेरी एक बंदी थी मेरे को तो बहुत मजा आता था हवा चलती थी बाइक पे जाते थे वो
उससे चेहरे पे स्माइल आ गया that is not humor.
Okay,
got it.
वो आपको छोड़ के कहीं हो सकता है for others.
वो तुम लोगों के लिए
for
होगा।
others.
मेरे लिए
Context. तो हमने सब इसमें क्लासिफाई कर दिया.
Done. Let's proceed.
Okay, so far we've covered 3 topics: culture/geography. Then we moved on to context, and then we've tried to understand how communication is also an important aspect for humor. Lastly, I would want you to take it onto yourself, like psychologically or physiologically. How is humor an important aspect to living beings?
From a universality point of view.
Yeah, and how has it evolved over time? Like Raman pointed out in one of the discussions that humor may or may not result in laughter, right? So there are so many different forms of humor. Some might intrigue you, some might, you might find goofy, or like you might find silly, right? But it's physiologically.
Go might be there over it.
Physiologically and psychologically, like how has humor evolved over like the existence of humanity, and how it is the most, if not the most, one of the most important emotion or aspect of a balanced or a happy life. So how do you think humor, on that note or on that front, is it universal need or is it universal?
मेरे को तो लगता है बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स वो है ये इट्स अ कॉम्प्लेक्स इमोशन इट्स नॉट अ सिंपल इमोशन लाइक हैप्पीनेस सैडनेस
No, we're not talking about happiness. We're talking about.
मैं वही कह रहा हूँ इट्स नॉट लाइक such a easy कि अच्छा लगा बुरा लगा इमोशन ह्यूमर is I think a more complex emotion. मैं ज़्यादा समझता नहीं हूँ बायोकेमिस्ट्री, so I'm not an expert by any means, but based on my personal experiences मुझे लगता है कि शायद यूनिवर्सल नहीं होगा, शायद सब बीइंग्स में नहीं होगा ह्यूमर. It would only be some complex lives only where humor would really exist.
Okay. So what you're saying is it could be universal for human beings, not for all species.
Yeah.
Is what you're trying
universal,
to say.
The point of view of finding something funny would be, of course, universal in human beings. There's no debate.
No, but abhi tak, whatever debate we have had for the last 1 hour, everything we're looking from a very human being context only, right?
I think तो वहीं पे रखते हैं.
हाँ, तो human being के लगते हैं. Animals को भी funny कुछ लग सकता है, but we're not even discussing about other. So is humor
कुछ ना कुछ तो सबको funny लगता ही है. If you're talking about is there Would there be anybody who would not find anything funny?
No, I was talking more from the perspective of how psychologically it's something that you need to probably live a daily life, and how physiologically our mind or our body secretes endorphins, and there are like some 30 researches which says that how does humor help you, like both the laughter is the best medicine, right? It's for a reason, because it not only just makes you feel funny or happy, but it also acts as a medicine to your body. So physiologically, isn't it a universal thing that God has created, that it has to be an essential element for your well-being?
तो मैं इसे ना थोड़ा सा spirituality से I would like to connect and just thinking out aloud here. जब आपने बोला कि happiness is laughter is the best medicine, तो वहां पे मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आप किसी चीज पे तभी हंस सकते हो जब आप उस चीज से डिटैच हो गए हो. So it is actually not just helping in only, I feel, psychological or physiological way to the body, but it is also for the well-being of your spiritual health when you are able to laugh at things. Matlab, it's not just the biological body that feels better. I think it in fact hits your spiritual.
So in a way, you are saying the positive effects or the effects of humor is transcending across mind, body, and spirit,
and
or
soul,
or whatever. So that's what you're saying.
I think it's very much essential, like similarly what you guys are trying to point out, and I feel for me it's the most important element in my life. I would prefer humor over everything. And what about you, Baba? Given a choice, what would you rather choose, sex or humor?
I would choose humor any day. What about you?
I already chose humor. It's always humor.
No, between sex and humor.
Of course, it's always humor.
Raman?
तो मेरे लिए देखो, as I started saying, humor is the ability to find things funny. I think my life is going to be hell if I stopped having that ability of finding things funny, right? Or to have that point of view. So I think very important for me to have that point of view always in life. So definitely humor.
So again, we discussed 4 broad parameters. I mean, to sum it up, I think it's time we conclude. So one was, of course, culture/geography. Second was context. Third was communication. Fourth was around whether it's physiological or psychological need as well. So broadly, if you were to summarize your take on the topic, that is humor universal, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think, as you said, humor on different aspects has different universality, is how I would conclude. We cannot, in my mind, I cannot give an answer to whether humor is universal or not. Humor is universal on some of the parameters that we discussed. Humor is not universal in some of the parameters. So giving one final verdict or score whether humor is universal or not, I am finding it very tough to do that.
Okay, तो मैं तो ये बोलना चाहूँगा, for some people, they can find humor in anything. So for some people, it is very, like anything can be funny. It's just a way of looking at things. For some jokes to be funny to everybody, it might be possible. That also might be possible.
Yeah, understood. What about you, Piyush?
So I have a slightly different take. I feel universal तो नहीं है humor. I mean, based on whatever parameters that we talked about, my personal opinion is it's a lot more nuanced based on all these aspects, and in the time and age that we're living in, it's a lot more moderated. So, the real question for me is, forget about humor being universal. Looking at the current scheme of affairs in the nation, I feel the bigger question is there humor anymore? Like, is there any humor in anything? So yeah, that's how I would put it.
नहीं, ये मैं समझा नहीं. Is there any humor in anything? तो क्या मतलब?
You can't laugh at anything. I mean, or you can't.
Bro, laughter is not
No,
humor.
I'm saying you can't joke about anything.
Joke is not humor.
For example,
Finding anything funny is humor. How can you say that because of whatever happens in the nation or in the government, you will stop finding humor in your life?
No, I'm not saying that I will stop finding humor in life. I already mentioned that how it now is being moderated and controlled. That
is comedy that is getting controlled.
No, I think
humor is in everyday life.
There are two things. One is finding something humorous and the expression of humor.
Correct.
What I think he's trying to say, or what I could gauge, is that expression of humor has become limiting. due to various
Yes.
things, be it in movie, comedy shows, or in this podcast, we could have said a lot of things today, which we have possibly not said because of the situation we live in.
Okay, guys, we have had a lot of discussion even after the closing comments. I think we all got very passionate discussing about the topic, and I think it is irony, the theory of incongruity. Incongruity, which says that there is humor in irony and there's humor in surprise. Probably we have surprised ourselves by not being funny on a podcast that is titled centered around humor. But I think there is humor in that as well. So thank you so much for listening to us. We will wrap this episode here. We would love to hear from you all. What do you think about this podcast? Please do write to us in the comments, and we would really appreciate it. Good, bad, whatever. Just be honest and leave your comments for us in the comment box. And please subscribe and like this video if you really liked it. It helps the algorithm. And you can also write to us about the topics that you want us to discuss in the next podcast. So see you very soon again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.